There is a machine sitting outside your house right now that you have almost certainly never looked at. Not glanced at, not walked past, actually looked at. It is that big metal box out along the side of the house or around the back. The one that hums and rattles all summer long. The one you have got a shrub growing up against and maybe a garden hose coiled on top of. And I would wager that in the 15 or 20 years it has been sitting there, not one person has ever knelt down and put their eyes on the metal fins that wrap around the outside of it. Go do that sometime this week. Get down on one knee and look close at those thin metal fins, and you are going to find something that will turn your stomach a little. Cottonwood fluff packed in tight like felt. Grass clippings blown in from the mower. Dust and pollen and dryer lint gone to a gray mat. Dead leaves rotted down into the bottom. Years of it, layered in and matted down, and that gray felt is the reason your air conditioner runs and runs on a hot afternoon and never quite catches up. And the reason your summer power bill is bigger than it has any right to be. And, I am sorry to tell you, the reason a great many of these systems die 8 or 10 years before they should. If you are new here, subscribe, because I show you one of these plain, honest fixes every single day. And do me a favor and tell me down in the comments how old your outdoor unit is, and whether you have ever once cleaned it, and where in the world you are watching from. I want to see how many of you have never touched it, because I suspect it is most of you, and I do not think that is your fault. Let me explain what that box is actually doing, because once you understand its job, everything else tonight is obvious. Most folks think an air conditioner makes cold. It does not. There is no such thing as making cold. What an air conditioner does is take the heat out of the air inside your house and carry it outside and throw it away. That is the whole trick. Inside your house, there is a coil that picks the heat up out of your indoor air. Then that heat gets carried out to the box in your yard. And that box has one job and one job only. Get rid of it. Dump it into the outdoor air. That is what those thin metal fins are for. Refrigerant carrying your household heat runs through the tubing behind them. A big fan pulls outdoor air through the fins, and the air carries the heat away. That is why it is called the condenser. And that is why the whole system lives or dies by how freely air can move through that metal. Now picture what happens when those fins are packed with a mat of cottonwood fluff and lawn clippings. The air cannot get through. And if the air cannot get through, the heat cannot get out. Your system is now trying to throw your household heat away into a box that has been sealed shut with felt. So the heat does not leave. The pressure inside the system climbs. The whole machine runs hotter. And the compressor, which is the pump at the heart of all this, has to work harder and run longer to push against it. Meanwhile, your house is not getting any cooler, so the thermostat keeps calling for more. And that is the afternoon so many of you know by heart, where the unit runs practically without stopping from noon till dark, and the house still sits 3 degrees warm, and you sit there wondering, what is wrong with this thing? Nothing is wrong with it. It is choking. And here is what makes the outdoor unit the most neglected part in your entire house. That indoor coil, the one that picks the heat up, at least has a filter in front of it. Somebody at some point told you to change that filter. But the outdoor unit has no filter, not one. It sits out there in the weather, sucking in raw, unfiltered outdoor air by the thousands of cubic feet every hour, all summer, for its whole life. Every cottonwood seed, every grass clipping, every bit of pollen and road dust and lint that blows across your yard gets pulled straight into those fins and stays there. It is a permanent, unfiltered vacuum cleaner running in your yard, and nobody ever told you it needed emptying. Now, let me talk about money, and I am going to give you the honest arithmetic rather than the exciting one, because you can check these numbers, and I would rather you trust me. The research on this is real, and it is not small. The Department of Energy puts a badly fouled condenser at up to a 30% increase in the energy that system uses. 30%. And studies have found that a layer of dirt on those coils, no thicker than a business card, can knock better than 20% off the efficiency of the machine. So the effect is genuine, and it is large. But here is the part where I have to be straight with you. The average American household with central air spends somewhere around $500 on cooling across a whole summer. That is the entire bill, June to September, for a clean and healthy system. So when somebody tells you a dirty coil is adding $500 to your summer, they are telling you that dirt is doubling your cooling bill, and for most houses, that is simply not what happens. The truthful number for a typical home with badly fouled coils is more like $100 to $200 across the season. If you live somewhere brutal, Arizona, Texas, the Deep South, where a summer of cooling can run $1,000 or more, then yes, you can be losing $200 or $300. And in a big house with high rates, you can get up toward that headline figure. But I am not going to hand every one of you a number that only fits the worst case. $100 to $200 a summer, gone, for a job that takes you an hour and costs nothing. That is still worth your Saturday morning. But the electricity is not the real cost, and this is the part I want to land hard, because this is where the actual money is. It is the compressor. That compressor is the heart of the whole system, and it is the single most expensive component out there in that box. When the coils are choked and the heat cannot escape, that compressor runs hot and runs long, day after day, all summer, for years. And heat is what kills a compressor. It is the same story I tell you about every machine on this channel, whether it is a washer valve straining against a clogged screen or a dryer packed with lint. A part that runs hot and runs long dies before its time. So the machine that should have given you 18 or 20 years gives you 10 or 12. And when that compressor goes, you are not looking at a $200 repair. You are looking at thousands, and very often you are looking at a technician telling you it is not worth fixing, and you may as well replace the whole system, which is $5,000 to $8,000 and up. That is the real bill for a mat of cottonwood fluff, not a couple hundred in electricity. A whole system, years early. Now let me tell you why this particular thing sits so close to the bone for me. My name is Amos Bontrager, and I was raised plain in a Mennonite farming community in houses with no air conditioning in them at all. And I want to be careful here, because I am not going to sit and tell you the old way was better, standing in a July kitchen with the windows open and no relief anywhere. What I will tell you is that people who live without a machine to do a job for them end up understanding the job. We knew heat. We knew heat has to go somewhere, that it does not vanish, that it moves. We built the ice house into the north side of a bank where the ground was cool and packed it with sawdust so the heat could not find its way in. We hung the porch on the side that took the afternoon sun and planted the shade trees where they would do the most good. We opened the house at night and shut it up tight at dawn to hold the cool in. All of that is the same physics your air conditioner is running on, just done with a shovel and good sense instead of a compressor. And the other thing I carried out of that life is this. Every machine we owned got looked at. The windmill got greased. The harness got oiled and checked. The mower got its blades cleaned off before it went in the shed. Nobody had to be reminded, because a machine you never look at is a machine that will fail you in the middle of the job you need it most for. And out on a farm, that is not an inconvenience, that is a real loss. So the notion that a person could own a piece of equipment for 20 years, a piece that cost thousands of dollars, and never once walk out and put their eyes on it, would have been genuinely strange to my father. Not lazy, strange, like owning a horse and never looking at its feet. And yet that is exactly what the modern arrangement has taught almost everybody to do, because the box is out in the yard where you never go. It makes noise, so you assume it is working, and no one has ever suggested otherwise. All right, let me show you how to clean it. And I need you to listen very carefully to this next part, because this is the one job I teach you where the safety step is not optional, and I will not soften it. That outdoor unit runs on high voltage. Before you touch it, before you spray one drop of water on it, you kill the power. 2 places. First, find the disconnect box, which is a small metal box mounted on the wall right beside the unit, and pull the disconnect out of it. Some pull straight out like a handle, some have a lever. Then go inside to your breaker panel and shut off the breaker for the air conditioner as well. Both. Not one or the other, both. And then, if you want to be certain the way I want you to be certain, go back and try the thermostat and confirm nothing kicks on. And here is the hard line, the one I will not budge on. Inside that outdoor unit, behind a service panel, there is a component called a capacitor. That capacitor can hold a lethal electrical charge even after the power has been off for a long while, and people have been badly hurt and killed by them. So you do not remove that service panel. You do not touch the wiring, the contactor, the capacitor, none of it. That is a licensed technician's work, full stop. And the same goes for the refrigerant. That is a sealed, pressurized system. And in this country, you legally cannot handle refrigerant without certification, and you should not want to. So if your unit is low on refrigerant or the electrical side is failing, that is a call, not a Saturday project. What we are doing tonight is entirely on the outside of the machine. We are clearing debris and rinsing metal fins. That is it. So, power off both places. Now, clear the outside of the unit. Rake out every leaf and stick and clump of grass from around the base, and pull off anything sitting on top of it. Then take a soft brush, a decent hand brush works fine, and brush those fins gently from the top down, going with the direction the fins run, not across them. Those fins are aluminum, and they are thin as paper, and they bend if you look at them wrong. And a bent fin blocks air just the same as a leaf does. Brush the loose mat of fluff and clippings off all 4 sides. Then take your garden hose with a regular spray, not a pressure washer, and never a pressure washer, because that will flatten those fins into a solid wall, and you will have made it worse than you found it. Spray from the top down, and, if you can reach, from the inside out, so you are pushing the dirt back out the way it came in rather than driving it deeper. Work your way around all 4 sides and keep going until the water running off it is clean. If the fins are truly greasy and matted, there are foaming coil cleaners at any hardware store for a few dollars that you spray on, let sit, and rinse away. Let the whole thing dry, put your disconnect back in, turn your breaker on, and let it run. And a great many of you are going to walk back inside within the hour and notice that the house is actually getting cool again for the first time in 2 summers. Now, 3 companion habits, and they cost nothing. First, clearance. That unit needs to breathe, so give it at least 2 feet clear on all sides and several feet of open sky above it. Cut back the shrubs. Move the trash cans and the coiled hose. Do not build a nice little fence enclosure around it to hide it, which I have seen more times than I can count, because you have just built it a box to suffocate in. Second, the indoor filter. And I know you have heard this one, but hear it with the new understanding you have now. A choked filter starves the indoor coil of airflow exactly the way a matted fin starves the outdoor one, and the 2 problems compound each other. Check it monthly in the cooling season. Change it when it looks gray. And do not let anybody talk you into the thickest, densest filter on the shelf on an older system, because a filter that is too restrictive is its own kind of clog. Third, the condensate drain. Your indoor coil pulls water out of the air all summer, gallons of it, and that water leaves through a small drain line. That line grows algae and slime and plugs up, and then the water backs up into a pan and overflows into your ceiling or your floor. Find where that little line drains, keep the end of it clear, and if you are handy, a cup of vinegar poured into the access port a couple of times a season keeps it running clean. No wires, no refrigerant, just water and a drain. Now, on timing, because people always ask. The best moment to do this is early spring, before the first real hot spell, so the machine goes into the season clean and never spends a single brutal afternoon fighting a clogged coil. Once a year is the baseline for most houses, but if you have a Cottonwood anywhere in your neighborhood, or you are down a gravel road, or your yard is dusty, or you mow right up alongside that unit, make it twice, once in spring and once around midsummer. And here is a small habit worth more than it sounds. When you mow, aim the chute away from that unit. All those clippings you have been firing at it for 15 years went straight into the fins and stayed there. And while we are talking about that box breathing, let me settle a question I got asked in 100 driveways. Should you build a shade over it? People hear that the unit works harder in the heat and figure they will do it a kindness by roofing it over. Do not. Any real gain from shading is small, and the way most folks build it, low and tight and boxed in, chokes the airflow far worse than the sun ever hurt it. If you have got a tree that happens to throw afternoon shade across it from well overhead without dropping leaves and seed into it, wonderful, leave it be. But do not build that unit a hat. It needs open air far more than it needs shade. And one more free thing that comes straight out of the old way of doing it. Your system is fighting the heat your house took on all day, so help it. Close the blinds and curtains on the sunny side before the afternoon rather than after. And if your nights cool off, open the place up and let that cool in and shut it tight at dawn. That is the ice house principle exactly, and every degree of heat you keep out of the house is a degree that box in your yard never has to throw away. And I want to tell you plainly when to stop and pick up the phone, because knowing the boundary is as much a part of this trade as knowing the fix. If you clean that coil properly and the house still will not cool, that is your signal that the problem is not dirt. If you go out and find ice built up on the copper line running into the house, or frost on the unit itself in the middle of July, shut the system off and call somebody, because that means airflow or refrigerant trouble, and running it iced up can destroy the compressor in short order. If the unit hums but the fan will not turn, that is very often the capacitor, and you now know exactly why you are not opening that panel yourself. If you hear a hard grinding or a shriek out of it, or it trips the breaker every time it starts, or you catch a burning smell, shut it down and make the call. None of that is failure on your part. That is you doing the cheap, safe half of the work yourself and correctly handing off the half that needs a license and a gauge set. And you will be handing it off to a technician who now has to actually find a real problem, instead of one who walks up to a coil packed with fluff and quotes you a new system. And here is what I keep chewing on. Every bit of this is known. The efficiency numbers are published by the Department of Energy. The manufacturers know that an unfiltered coil sitting outdoors will foul because they designed it that way on purpose. And what does the homeowner get? A thick manual in a drawer and absolutely no indication ever that the most expensive mechanical system in the house needs an hour of attention once a year. There is no light, no chime, no card in the box. What there is, instead, is a whole industry built on the moment it fails, and a standard piece of advice that when a system is more than 10 years old, you should really just replace the whole thing. And I sat in enough driveways over enough years to have watched that conversation happen many times, with a good family and a unit that had 8 years left in it, and a coil so packed with cottonwood you could have peeled it off in sheets. Nobody had to lie to those people. All anybody had to do was never mention it. So here is what I am asking you to do. This weekend, walk around to that box in your yard and actually look at it, close, down on one knee. Look at the fins on all 4 sides. See what is packed in there. Clear the shrubs and the clutter back from it, and if you are up to it, kill the power at the disconnect and the breaker and give it an hour with a soft brush and a garden hose, staying entirely on the outside of the machine. Then come back and tell me in the comments what came off it, because I have a feeling some of you are going to pull a mat of gray felt out of those fins that will genuinely shock you. And your comment is going to be the thing that gets the next person out to their own yard. If you want more of these, the honest ones that keep your machines alive and your money in your pocket, subscribe and stay with me, because there is a new one every single day. Next time, I am taking you to the coils underneath your refrigerator, the ones packed with years of dust down where nobody looks, and showing you how 10 minutes with a cheap brush takes years of strain off the one machine in your house that never, ever gets to rest. I'm Amos Bontrager. Thank you for listening to Old Timer Appliance Resurrection.